It's time for the Chapter and Chatter Cafe with Camden County Library District Director, Professor Jim Paisley.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome back to Chapter and Chatter. Got an interesting topic today.
do.
Seems like there's been a few things happening in Iran, since we
a
last
few.
visited.
Well, I think it was happening when we last visited.
Well,
too.
yeah,
a
it
little
was
bit.
kind of happening.
Kind of.
And it's still kind of happening,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yes.
Anyhow, I thought maybe it might be kind of fun to go back over some of the things that have happened since the last time we met and, share a little information as to where we're at and where we might possibly be heading. So
Sounds good.
yeah. So and using beheading with Iran, that probably wasn't wise, But yeah. Okay. So anyhow, bottom line is we're going to talk a little bit about Iran. Okay. Now, what's interesting here is that despite having overseen this whole program to do away with the nuclear capabilities of Iran,
Right.
the president really hasn't gotten a whole lot of accolades out of that. It's been interesting. Everybody else for, one generation to the next has said, every president has said, we need to stop it. We need to make this not happen. Well, sure enough, he went ahead and did it. We sent over our B-2 bombers from here in Missouri, which was quite a feat in itself.
Yes.
And had the help of Israel taking out the air defenses and all. And lo and behold, we were able to pull it off without any casualties. And love him or hate him, at least Trump finally had the guts, I'll say it, to do something. The others haven't done it. We've had, I think the last time we dropped anything on Iran was several pallets full of cash, and that, some of you can remember that. But no, he decided, we're not going to put up with this. And sure enough, they turned around and carried out this deal. I heard a funny joke the other day. I shouldn't laugh about it, but somebody said he's opening a golf course in Iran. He's already got the first 3 holes done. I know. That's not funny, right? Now, but
Yeah.
Now, we should be on the third slide here, buddy. I'm talking to my chief consultant here.
The man
Now,
behind the camera.
Basically what happened, and it was really pretty amazing when you think about it, the United States, working with several of the Arab nations, including Israel, we were able to take and carry out this mission, and we traveled over 1,000 miles, just the Israelis alone, to just basically take out the Iranian military. We took out a lot of their nuclear scientists, basically took out their anti-aircraft defenses, which is something in this day and age.
Right.
And so it put us in a position where we could bring the B-2s in and take out this nuclear capability that everybody's been so worried about. Now, there has been talk about, was this a wise move?
That was going to be one of my questions. Is there, during this, of course, there's Trump's, everybody's quoting is, gave him 60 days, today's day 61.
Right.
So with that, was there much room for diplomacy in that? Was there a defined, clear alternative, or was this, hey, this is it? And
Well, when I look at it, you get the, how when you're a parent and you say do it or else,
right.
And the kids will push and push and push.
And then they still
That's
go.
kind of the way I felt about Iran. It's been, 4 or 5 presidents that said, no, don't do
Right.
this. And finally, somebody said, do it or else, and, wait till your dad gets home. Dad came home.
Well, Dad came home, but again, was there, after taking office and all this, everything else that's going on, was there time for there to be a diplomatic discussion?
How much time would be enough time?
I don't know. I'm just saying, was there a discussion there?
That is the big discussion, isn't it?
It is.
And there's a huge issue here because it's not just us and Iran.
No.
Now you've got these other countries, which, China and Russia, all these other countries involved in this, and you think, okay, what were their thoughts on it?
Right.
And when they sat back and didn't say anything, I think that probably had an influence on it too.
and it could.
Right.
I'm one of those people that tends to stick their head in the sand when it comes to conflict.
There you go.
So,
there you go. Right. Yeah. Well, I thought it was kind of interesting as well in that as the B-2 bombers are already in the air headed over there, they asked him. They said, so what are you going to do here? And he said, oh, well, I haven't made a decision yet. Well, he'd made the decision.
Right.
The bombers were going.
Right.
They're on the way. And then he even did something where he sent some of them to Guam. Or
right,
something like that.
I think he did. He sent some of them on a
which
different
was interesting because, the media immediately showed him, what are the B-2s doing here? This is a long way around, isn't it? But yeah, so anyhow, kind of a little diversion thing. But it was done so well that they didn't have to deal with all the strafing and anti-aircraft equipment and everything that the Iranians had. One of the news media said they didn't even have to deal with like Star Wars, where they had to go and hit the great battle star or whatever and loop it right down an air vent. They said it was, pretty much a cakewalk for the B-2s to get in there and get out.
Right.
Which was great, from the standpoint of being able to do it and get our own forces back out of there.
Right.
But
isn't that glorifying military action?
it is.
Isn't that?
Well, and there you go.
What
Now,
are the long-term
you get
consequences
into
of that?
you get in that peace through strength argument,
Right.
which Ronald Reagan ushered in. And so you almost have an interesting conundrum there in that you can take the diplomacy route and let these people just keep moving forward towards getting a nuclear capability, or do you turn around and nip it in the bud? That's the problem.
So I guess, okay, maybe that's one of my questions is, so this was all over nuclear capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
So why are we picking on Iran when maybe, well, North Korea might have
Absolutely.
a stockpile?
Absolutely.
We're not angered at them as we were at Iran. So
Well,
what's the...
And look at the countries that have it. We talked about Pakistan and India
Right.
the last time.
Right. So, I
You
mean,
know.
what's the difference between them having it and Iran having it?
Why do you get to have it and we don't? That's a great question.
And why do we get to have it and then somebody else doesn't?
Well, because we had it first, right?
okay.
And then Russia had it. And so I guess the big thing is a matter of trust. Who do you trust to have that capability?
Well, I don't know who I would trust, but I don't think I trust North Korea with it.
No. And that is a problem because that nuclear proliferation has happened where originally it was just us and the Russians. And then China wound up getting it.
Right.
And as it's expanded, I'm not real sure we know everybody that does have it.
Okay, and then, so along that same line, I guess, then who says you can have this much, U.S. can have this much, China can have this much, Russia can have this much? How do they know that there's too much stockpiling
And that,
in one area
that
over
goes
another?
back to your negotiations again. That started back during the Cold War with the SALT treaties, strategic arms limitation, to where, okay, you can have this many and you can have this many. And we've done that even during the World Wars. Prior to World War II, there was agreements as to how many ships you could have, because battleships were the nuclear weapons back then. They didn't have nuclear weapons, but if you had a battleship, there you are.
Right.
And so they said, well, U.S., you can have 6 of them, and Russia, you can have 6, and China, you can have 2. And we even told Japan, well, you can only have 1. And they're like, well, wait, why?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Where does
And
the fairness?
So that was
I mean,
part
I
of
know
what
it's not,
that's
life's
part of what
not
had
fair,
Japan mad at us, is they're saying, well, how come you get to have 6?
6 and I can only have
Yeah,
1?
exactly. Well, we don't trust you. And so it all comes down to a matter of trust and who do you want to allow to have this kind of capability. And that's really basically what happened, what we saw happen here with the Iranian situation.
Right.
It was just people just didn't trust them. And so here we are, good or bad, whether you agree with it or not, it's happened now. So now what's the
Right.
next step?
Right. So that is, I guess that would be the next step. Where are we at now?
Where
I
do we
mean,
go now?
Yes.
And, it's still developing. I think if you'll remember on one of the shows we talked about, it's the vacuum It's after you do something, what comes into the vacuum? In other words, you can remove a dictator, you can remove somebody, but then who gets back in their place? And I had a good friend of mine last night ask me, he said, do you have any idea what's going on with Israel bombing Damascus, Syria? They just bombed them like yesterday, day before.
For no reason?
Well, everybody's scratching their head and wondering. Well, I can give you a little hint. What happened here is that we took out Assad. He's out. He fled to Russia, and so it left a vacuum. Well, now you've got all of these different militant groups are trying to take over Syria. And the group that's most powerful that went in there was one that the Arab states said, no, we don't want them in there. Right. And so they lobbed a missile in and took care of that problem. But now you've still got a vacuum. Who's going to come in and take over Syria? And so this is how this whole thing plays out.
Right.
And that's where you get into the whole strategic planning for what's the best option. You could take, we know we could take Khomeini out. You could take the leader of Iran out.
Right.
But what do you get in his place?
I have no idea.
Yes, see? And so, and that's where we're going to get into a little history today, talking about just exactly how all this plays out and how we got there. Now, Mark, we can go to slide 5. China really hasn't rushed to the aid of Iran. That was a big concern, was China was going to jump in and, now we're threatening World War III. China has sat on the sidelines. China had to know we were going to go do this.
I'm sure they saw some sort of writing on the wall.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And basically, China is in a predicament because they get their oil from Iran.
Right.
And any retaliation that Iran takes against the United States, they could turn around and shut down the Strait of Hormuz.
Right.
Well, when they shut it down, that doesn't just impact us, that impacts China. So you're cutting off their oil. So basically, China's in a predicament, and that they're having to tell Iran, don't do that, right?
Right.
And so it's a tough deal. Russia, basically, they're unlikely to come to Iran's defense because Russia's already got their own headaches going on, don't they, with Ukraine and everything that's happening there. And so, basically, it's one of those situations, if you're going to do it, probably now is the time to do it. But the thing that we're teetering on is what's the next escalation?
Well, that's what I was going to say. So with China and Russia not stepping in,
right,
is that going to put a change or a shift into global alliance?
Yes.
And so, or are they just playing the long game? Or how do you see it playing out, I guess I should ask?
I think what's throwing a wrench in this whole thing is we talk about the military side of it, but what Trump's doctrine pretty much he's shown is economics. What he's doing is he's playing the dollar on this thing with his sanctions and all, cutting off all the supplies. He's already talked about upping the sanctions we already have on Russia, the sanctions that have been on Iran, strangling these countries out of any sort of economics is probably the next phase that we're going to see. And I think that in itself is going to be interesting because I call them secondary tariffs. And what that is we're not only going to put tariffs on the perpetrator, Iran.
Okay.
We're going to put tariffs on the people that are trading with Iran.
Okay.
So if China
China would be again tariffed again
because
above and beyond what we're
of
already
any of the trade they do with Iran.
Above and beyond what we're already doing
Right.
with them.
So I think that's the next step that Trump would like to use. I don't think that either country, Iran or the U.S., wants to get involved in a full-blown conflict.
I certainly hope not.
And I've got some stuff here we'll talk about in a minute about what it's going to cost in terms of if we did get into that type of a conflict. Right. Now, nobody talks about the most important accomplishment that's been achieved during this whole latest regime under Trump. And that's basically that he has shown everybody that it's peace through strength. I think there's no doubt in anybody's mind now, if you mess with us, right or wrong,
right or
wrong, if he says he's going to do something, he'll do it. which is one of the scariest things any politician can do.
I was
I
going to say
mean, we've seen Mussolini do it, Hitler did it, everybody
Well, that's
did.
what I was going to ask. Doesn't that
Churchill
risk
did it, everybody.
escalating tensions?
You know, when a politician runs, they give you all these great ideas of what they want to do, you know, and everybody's like, yeah, that'd be great, but it never happens.
Right.
The ones that have always been really successful, they tell you, here's what I'm going to do, and they keep their promise. Now and it could be good or bad, you know.
Yes.
And so, again, you know, I'm not going to take a side one way or the other, but if nothing else, he has set the table now to say, okay, try it. And you brought up Korea.
Right.
You know, I haven't heard a word out of Kim Jong-un, you know.
Well, that's almost scary in itself, to me,
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, you know, it's a doctrine that's been around since Reagan's time. And, you know, there's all kinds, you could debate it all day long, diplomacy or peace through strength, which one's the better way to go? And I think that's a debate it's been going on
And it will
since
continue.
Roman times.
And it will continue, yes.
You know, and so where do you go from there? Now, other Arab nations that once wanted to destroy Israel, they're all going to step back now and say, you know, maybe we ought to sit back. We might be better off, you know, trading with the U.S. and getting along with them as opposed to sitting there and having another Arab Spring and causing all kinds of problems. So therein again is what you have to look at is the system of alliances. Because just like the media says, okay, we think peace through strength is best, or we think diplomacy is best, you have countries that are that way. There's going to be a lot of countries in NATO who are going to say, heck yeah, it's about time somebody did something. But there's an equal number of countries in NATO that are saying, now you've done it.
Right.
And so it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't, isn't
Right.
it? Right. Now, bear in mind, 58 years ago, 6 nations all aligned in an aggressive war to take Israel off the map. I mean, they just wanted to do away with them. That was Jordan, Egypt, Syria, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Lebanon. They all got together and said, we're not going to have this. We're going to do away with this settlement where they created this Jewish state. Now, it was as a result of this whole thing, you know, Trump's last regime, he was in there, he created Jerusalem, he recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Well, that didn't fly real well with a lot of people. But what he did is he created something called the Abraham Accords. Now, you guys all heard of that on the news, right?
Right.
But basically what it was is rather than peace through strength, it was economic. The Abraham Accords were, they all sat down at the table, and it had the United Arab Emirates, had Morocco, Bahrain, Sudan, and he said, let's not fight, let's open up our trade. And we'll open up our trade to you all and vice versa. So it was an economic agreement. Everybody stood to make a lot of money. And so they signed it, you know, rather than shooting guns at each other.
Right.
The economy was what he used to try and use it as leverage, okay? But the real cause of the situation was that it provided a dramatic way for revolutionaries in Iran to turn around and say, really? They're meddling now in our economy.
Well, I think that was one of the things that I was going to ask you is as how sustainable is that model?
Well, there you go. Yeah, you know. And really, you know, when you think about it, would we want, well, we're doing it right now. We're mad because China's in here buying up a lot of our farms.
Right.
And everything.
Right.
We don't like it.
Right.
Well, they don't like it either. And so, you know, you can use the economy, but again, that's going to cause quite an issue, you know, in that I don't want somebody in another country deciding what the yield for our corn crops is here in Iowa, right? And so this becomes another point of contention, if you will.
Right.
Yeah, so it's another great point. Now, what happened here is that the radicals in Iran, they saw that happening in their country. It goes all the way back to World War I with the oil. And the radicals in the country are saying, we don't like the United States and England and all the rest of them exploiting us for the natural resources that we have. And that's why they all turned to the Ayatollah Khomeini. That's what the big issue was. Now, if you remember, there was a hostage situation, right? Way back when, before you were born.
I was going to say, I think it's a little bit
probably.
before my
Yeah,
time, just a
Some
little
of my
bit.
guests here probably remember that, right? But basically, they came in and they captured our embassy people. And they held them for 444 days. I mean, a long time. And this whole Iran hostage crisis actually started with a series of events that took place 50 years before that. And so basically the source of tension between Iran and the U.S. came from the conflict over oil. It all comes back to money, guys. Follow the money, right? Mm-hmm. Now, British and American corporations controlled the bulk of Iran's oil since its discovery right after World War I. Now, if you go back and look at this, what happened was, and I think we've got another map here. There's my friend. You know, maybe we should be on slide 10, I think. I'm not real sure. There we go. Yeah. Okay, if you see this map here, see where Iraq is, that was British controlled. Jordan was British controlled. Syria and Lebanon were both controlled by the French. Now what happened was when the war came to an end, when World War I came to an end, they said, well, we got all these Arab tribes running around. They don't know how to have a government. And so they came up with something called the mandate system. This was as a result of the treaty that was settled.
Kind of like what we talked about last month with India and Pakistan.
Yes, exactly. And so in our infinite wisdom, we turned around and they divided all this land up. There were no maps. There are no lines on this. It was all just Arab tribes. Mm-hmm. And so these countries were actually created at the end of World War I.
Gotcha.
And so the British came in and said, we'll take this green area over here and we'll make that ours. France, you can have this area over here, you know, and you can call that Syria. And so now bear in mind, you live there, you're minding your own business. And so all of a sudden somebody comes in and goes, Vive la France! And there you are, you're French. Well, wait a minute, how'd that happen, you know? And then, you know, here they are, they're over there in Iraq, you know, righto then, spot of tea, you know, and you're thinking, what? You know, now bear in mind, this was the settlement. Now, I think it's interesting, you don't see the United States on this map. And the reason why, here again, your diplomacy. What happened is Woodrow Wilson, he wanted to be a part of this whole thing of divvying everything up after World War I, and he even had a plan called the 14 Points. Well, he negotiated the whole thing, and then he comes back to Congress and he drops this document and said, here's this treaty thing, you guys need to sign that. Well, Congress turned around and said, are you nuts? You know, you're saying in this thing, you know, this created the whole situation where if they attack one of us, they attack us all and that. And Congress says, no, we're not going, you'll love this. Congress says, we're not going to get in a situation where some other country fires a missile and gets us dragged into a war. Huh, maybe we should have listened to those guys back then, right? Well, as a result of it, when they signed the treaty, the United States couldn't sign it because Congress refused. So all the rest of them signed it, and when they signed the treaty, England and France and the rest of them all got pieces of the deal. Now, what we got out of it was France and England took these territories, but they didn't know diddly squat about how to get oil out of the ground. We did. And so that's where, you know, things like Standard Oil and Exxon and all these, they went over there, built the refineries for the British and for the French, and we got the oil out for a handling fee.
Right.
Right. Now, while all this is happening, all this oil is coming out of the ground, and the United States, England, France, everybody's making all this money, the people there in these countries aren't getting any of it. So you can see, you know, and I'm not defending them, but from the standpoint, if you woke up tomorrow and standing out in front of the library is a French flag and it says Vive la France, and now they're going to decide where you work and what you do and, you know, take all the profits from the country, you might be a little aggravated.
Might be.
Yeah. And so that basically sets the stage, if you will, for how we got to where the conflict, you know, its basis, if you will.
Right.
All right. Now, in 1951,
Okay.
Iran's newly elected prime minister, a guy by the name of Mohammad Musadai. Now, this guy, he announced a plan to take control of the oil. He said, enough's enough. He said, you guys are coming in here making millions of dollars off of us. It's our country. You know, we're done. The idea was with the mandate system, by the way, when the British and French came in, was just to get them up and running. And once they had a democracy, then we'd walk away.
Then they back out.
But they, you know, they go, okay, we got it now. We figured it all out. And they go, you know, we're looking at all the money going, I don't think you need more time. We're going to have to teach you a little more about democracy. You know, what they saw of it, they didn't like too much anyhow. And so this guy, Musadai, comes in and he says, we're going to take this back. We're going to be independent, and you guys can get out of our country. Well, in response to these policies, the American CIA and the British Intelligence Service worked together to try and figure out, what are we going to do with this guy? And lo and behold, there was a revolution, and they overthrew it. Okay, so Musadai is out because he was wanting to get rid of British control.
Right.
All right?
I may let you go, and then I may ask my
All
question.
right.
I don't know if I should ask my question.
No,
yet.
no. And so what happens then is the new leader was a member of Iran's royal family. The guy's name was Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi, okay? And you guys remember him as the Shah of Iran. Some of you do, right? Remember the Shah? Okay. There's our friend Mohammad Musadai, the guy on the left. He's the one that said, we need to get these clowns out of our country. He gets thrown out, and we put this guy in, the Shah. With me so far? Okay. Now, what we see happen is the new guy, he's non-religious, he's anti-communist, and he's pro-West. He's like, I don't see a problem with this. Now, how much money he was making, I don't know.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So, bottom line is, in exchange for tens of millions of dollars probably in foreign aid, he basically returned 80% of all the oil that Iran was pumping out of the ground and sending it to the U.S. and British and the rest of them. Make sense? Okay? There was a deal, if you will. The art of the deal, right? Now, basically, the coup that they pulled off, this was in '53, it was a success. However, the Iranians, who were already primed to overthrow these foreign entities and get them out of their country, they're stuck now. Now they got a new guy in charge.
Well, I guess that's kind of maybe my question. What happened? What would have happened if Musadai would have stayed?
If he'd have stayed in power?
Yeah.
Yeah, Iran would have become independent. They'd have become probably like the Arab Emirates with the amount of oil coming in. I mean, you're talking billions of dollars.
Right.
You bet. They had everything to gain and really nothing to lose.
So, in that sense, did they mess up in their mind by kicking him out and then having, or is it?
They didn't have a choice.
They didn't have a choice.
It came from, like I say, this was all done, you know, clandestinely. Next
Right.
thing you know, you wake up tomorrow and you've got a new president.
Okay.
That's basically the way
Gotcha.
it went down. Okay. Now, basically, the Iranians are not happy.
Right.
And they got this Shah of Iran in there. He turns out to become a brutal dictator.
Right.
He has his own secret police, and he's rooting out all the dissidents that wanted to get rid of British control. And sure enough, what happens is over a period of time, the Shah is taking in billions of dollars. And this is one of those crazy things, too, is he's spending a lot of the money on defense. And this is part of the problem. The money, history repeats itself. We did it in Afghanistan, okay? We supplied the Afghanis with all the weapons they needed to drive the Russians out of Afghanistan. Then, when it came time for the Afghans to turn around and say, we don't want you guys here either, we're fighting against our own weapons, all right? Same thing happened in Iran. Iran was one of the first countries to have air defenses and everything else because the Shah bought them with our money. And we were giving it to him because he's our guy. Seemed like a fair deal.
Right.
But then, lo and behold, what happens? A revolution again.
Right.
And so when they got rid of the Shah, we're up against our own weapons, which was a heck of a mess.
I'm sure.
Right?
Yes.
Yes. So again, it's one of these, the vacuum you take somebody out, what you wind up with behind it is the problem. Okay, so we took out Musaday and we put in the Shah. We went from bad to worse.
Right.
And then when the Shah gets thrown out, it creates another vacuum, and we wind up with the Ayatollah. So every time, and you think somewhere along the line, throughout history, somebody would learn. If you take someone out, you better have plans for who's going to take their place. Because this is what causes most of these major issues when it comes to the conflict.
But even if you had somebody to take that place, how long are they going to last if somebody else doesn't want them in?
Just like the Shah.
Right.
Yes. You know, and I think the central theme here is that what happens is throughout all of it, you see nobody asks the people what they want. The people are the ones that are the last ones to know.
Right.
Like I say, you could wake up and there's a new flag in the yard.
Right.
And you're like, oh, now what? Right? And like I say, this isn't unique to us. This is throughout history this happens. You know, and it is. It's just an ongoing problem. Well, needless to say, the people are fit to be tied with the Shah.
Right.
And this is where they turned around and they basically what they did is they went and captured all of our people at the U.S. Embassy, and they held them for 444 days. Okay. Now, what's interesting about that is Carter was the president at the time. And needless to say, every day people here are raising hell and say, what are you going to do about getting our hostages back? Well, he didn't know what to do. I mean, he's in a real predicament.
Right.
And he even had a feeble attempt at trying to fly in there out in the desert. A sandstorm hit or something and wiped out. We lost 8 soldiers trying to go in and save the hostages. And the whole thing fell apart. So it was a great boondoggle. And Ronald Reagan decides to run against Carter. And he runs on the platform, if you put me in there, I will get our hostages out of Iran. And sure enough, January 21st, 1981, just a few hours after Ronald Reagan delivered his inaugural speech, the remaining hostages were released.
So was that symbolic, strategic? What's the...
You tell me. Yeah. You know, and then, you know...
I mean, that's fascinating that happened that way.
There was a whole nother scandal there, you know, that...
was he in talks with them beforehand?
Oh, yeah.
Or...
And supposedly they were exchanging arms for hostages. That was that whole deal. We won't even get into that, a whole nother show, but that was another deal. He said in Iran, we'll give you arms. You know, we'll basically it dealt with Central America. And
right.
So, yeah, it was a mess.
So this happening and them being released like that, and Carter trying but not having the opportunity to have them released.
Right.
That...
And then Reagan comes in with his doctrine of strength, or peace through strength.
And then having them released immediately as soon as he's inaugurated.
Right.
Does that come into play on how the presidential strengths are seen? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I guess Carter, you know, again, this was all before my time.
Yes.
This was, I mean, Reagan was inaugurated 1 month before I was born.
Oh, God.
So, to the day.
Good.
So I'm not.
Yes, this is ancient history.
This is all new to me.
Right.
So, you know, Carter, I'm sure he tried his best to get these hostages released. And then, like I said, Reagan coming in there, I mean, hours after he has taken the oath of office, and they're released.
And really, to be fair, Carter was in the same situation basically where Trump is now. You've got a country that is still well armed.
Right.
And to go in there, you're talking a conflict that's going to cost thousands of lives. And bear in mind, Iran at the time when Carter was dealing with them was loaded for bear because the Shah had bought all the military equipment.
Right.
So he was kind of, you know, he was trying to negotiate, but...
And then, like you said, you know, because we did supply that,
right.
we're like you said, we're fighting against our own army, and at the time, we're equal.
Exactly.
You know, our equipment
exactly.
is still this, you know.
But, you know, somebody's not doing the job, fill the vacuum. And what do you get as a vacuum? You get Ronald Reagan. He comes in, all right? And he's saying peace through strength, all right? And so now, all of a sudden, because the hostages were released, you know, the public is saying, heck yeah. We've had 4 years under Carter where he didn't do a damn thing, couldn't get him out of there. And this guy comes in, and the second day he's got him released. And so, again, there's so much going on behind the scenes. But I'm so glad you said that about how this is, you know, the same year that you're born.
Yes.
And that's the purpose of doing these shows, folks, because right now the news is dominated by all this talk about Iran. Yet there's a whole generation of people, not your fault, but there's a whole generation here that doesn't know these stories, doesn't understand why does Iran hate us so much?
Right.
You know?
And that, I guess maybe that's where my mental state is like, why, what did we do? You know,
Right.
and that's the whole thing is, like I said at the beginning, who decides that we can have nuclear power, weapons, whatever, even stockpiles, but Iran can't?
Mm-hmm.
What makes the difference between Iran having them and, say, even next door India having them? What's the difference?
And you can go all the way back to World War I. Who died and left you guys in charge
Well,
to where you can just turn
true.
around and draw lines on the map?
Right.
You
So
know,
what happened? I mean, what?
And that's what they did. I mean, when they were done with that war, I mean, it wasn't just the Middle East. It was throughout the world.
Right.
New countries
and I think
sprang
we
up,
talked
new
about that
borders came
before,
about. You're like,
is
wait,
all that
yeah,
as well.
you know.
Is World War, I guess World War I, because it was a world conflict.
Right.
Everybody was drawn into
Right.
it. Nobody liked their line. So like, oh, let's
Yeah.
just
You
take
know.
the map and remark
Right.
it. I want to be here. And I guess we can even see that, like we've even talked about before, is with Russia and Ukraine. Well, Russia had part of Ukraine,
right.
but they didn't want to be a part of it or whatever.
Exactly.
And then now there's
Yeah.
a conflict that they want to take it back, and Ukraine doesn't want to give it up or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's always those conflicts, but like I said, it's just, and like you said, history does repeat itself.
But it to me, again, I think what's fascinating is that nowadays we don't get it. The national media doesn't do a good enough job of giving us the information as to what in the world happened.
Okay, so maybe that should be another question. Is it media's fault, or is it coming down from
I think it's a
higher
combination
up
of
that doesn't want us to have all the information?
our education system right now. You know, they don't even teach any of this. You know, the history courses have
Well,
been
that's what I was gonna say,
eliminated
even
from the
when I was-
colleges and the high schools. They're not teaching any of this.
Even when I was
you
in
know.
high school, I don't remember learning any of this.
Right. Well, that's because they didn't teach it.
Well,
you know,
no, but it
and-
was, and I think it more focused on American history instead of world history.
Well, and again, you know, history is written by the winners.
Right.
And so you have a tendency when you look at the Middle East, we were the winners. And so, you know, bad guys there, good guys here kind of thing, when there was so much more involved.
Right.
You know, and so, you know, the Middle East should be just as mad at France because they had Syria and Lebanon.
Right.
You know, and so, I mean, it was just the fact that the winners sat down at a table and played Monopoly. You get this, you get this, you get this, and oh, by the way, this is your new ruler. They
Was it
even
Monopoly
picked the
or
rulers.
Risk?
Well, it's turned out to be Risk, hasn't it?
It has.
So bottom line is a lot of people are asking the questions today. What happens if we go to war with Iran?
And that is the thing. I mean, that's one of the things that I've been afraid of the last month is what happens if Iran does bombs?
Yes.
What happens? And right now I know they're still in conflict with Israel and they've taken things out. But what if China decides, hey, you know what, maybe it's not worth it to worry about these secondary tariffs and all this, and then
Again, you know, and what's interesting is there's been a lot of defense studies on it. I've done a little research on it. If it would start with just an opening attack, that would be unbelievable. It'd be very similar to what we saw the other night, only even worse. It would be an air attack, trying to take out all of their assets. But the bottom line is,
and that's the other thing is anymore. I mean, look at Ukraine and Russia; it's all drones.
right?
So
Yes, there'll never be another D-Day. There won't. You're not going to run 1 million people up on a beach anymore. Now it's all going to be done with drones and you know, missiles, that
Right.
sort of thing. But once you've done that, somebody still has to go in on the ground and take control.
right.
And you know, therein lies the problem. I mean, we've seen the ballywicks we've gotten into in Afghanistan and in Iraq, It's one thing to go in and take away their defense capabilities. It's another thing to finish them off.
Right.
And so, as they've done studies of this, literally hundreds of thousands of casualties is what we're looking at.
See, that
And,
scares
you know,
me to
we've
death.
got kids here that, you know, I've got a grandson that's real close to being draft age.
That's my
You
son.
know, yes, and so you've really got to worry about this sort of thing. Both leaders right now say they don't want war. Trump doesn't want to go to war with Iran. Iran really doesn't want to go to war with us. But, you know, will cooler heads prevail?
Right.
Now, basically, the Pentagon, the White House, intelligence officials, Middle East experts, they've all got their theories on this. Basically, you've got some issues here in that, okay, say that the Allied side, which would be England, France, U.S., the Arab Emirates, and them, all want to take out Iran, all right? That side in itself, if they all attacked, you've got a country right there that already hates the Western side.
Right.
You got to ask yourself the question, would they lay down and say, we give up? Or would they turn around and would you create another Arab Spring where people are saying, we have our differences with our leader, but we're all going to rally behind him and become a huge force to have to fight? So it's one or the other, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Iranian forces could bomb an American oil tanker.
Right.
Pretty
well,
simple.
wasn't that what they feared right as the conflict was going on during that in the Strait of Hormuz or whatever?
Yeah,
it is?
I mean, how long
It
ago?
was,
It wasn't that long ago. Didn't they have a oil tanker got stuck in the Suez Canal? I don't
Yes.
even think it got bombed.
Well, I don't even
something
think it-
happened to it, ran aground or something, and that
It wasn't an oil
choked off
tanker, I don't think. It was just a cargo
just
ship.
a ship. Yeah,
And it got sideways
Yeah.
in the
And
in
so
the canal.
when you think about these things, you know, from a strategic standpoint, you're right. You know, that could just gum up the whole works, you know. Then all of a sudden think about it. What's it going to take to get our ships anywhere close to where we can participate in this?
Well,
thing?
and that was the thing. I think it was I can't remember what two ships it were, and I don't think even one of them was ours, but they were tankers, and they had lost communication with them, and then they were, you know, whatever we were watching, they were detecting fires out there in the middle of that strait.
Right.
And thought they'd lost a ship, but I don't remember what.
Well, and
ended up happening
here
with that,
again, you
but-
know, it's not like you're fighting a country where everybody's sitting around a campfire with a bunch of camels. These
Right.
people are highly sophisticated in what they do. I mean, you've seen, you know, their capabilities with their drones and their missiles and everything. And so another great threat would be a cyber attack. I mean, you know.
Well, and that's the thing is, again, I guess because we do send a lot of things outside of the United States. Really, I mean, they're kind of already tapped into that's our system.
Well, and a lot of people there are educated here
Right.
in our colleges. So,
Right.
you know, a cyber attack would be deadly for us. The other problem is that we've still got a huge occupying force in Iraq, right next door.
Right.
Well, they could attack the forces that we have stationed in Iraq right now, okay? So that would be another approach. If they attacked our troops in Iraq, what's Trump going to do? He's almost going to have to respond. You know, well, then is that going to cause an escalation?
Right.
You know, so again, we're teetering at a very tricky time right now, okay? If Tehran decided to destroy an oil tanker and caused a huge oil spill, I mean, again, the United States might decide, well, you took out one of our ships, we'll take out your ships.
Right.
And so now you get global, because now all of a sudden everybody's oil's cut off as we're taking out each other's supply lines,
right.
you know, which would be another deal in itself. U.S. military, like I say, we can attack their ships, their warplanes, their navy, but a bottom line is when you start poking the beehive, you're going to have to get all the bees, and that isn't. It doesn't, you know, it's just not going to happen.
Right.
All right. Now, one of the big problems they have is that they were talking about the fact that it's a huge risk to go after Iran because it's 3 times the size of Iraq. This isn't the same conflict, okay? People have a tendency to think the countries are all the same size. This place
you
is
say
huge.
that, and I'm sitting here thinking, I thought they were the same size.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Iran is the 17th largest country in the world. It is greater than France, Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium, Spain, and Portugal combined.
Wow.
It's huge.
I didn't realize.
Yeah, even when you get to the border, you got a long way to go.
Go.
Yeah, it's like driving to Florida and thinking, we're there. No, you got another 600 miles to go, right? The geography is terrible, absolutely terrible. Small mountain ranges, parts of it are desert. I mean, it would be a nightmare to have to go after this place. You know, a lot of countries have referred to Iran as a fortress just simply because, and that's throughout history, simply because of the demographics of the place. I mean, it's not an easy place to go after.
Right.
Okay. Whether you've got all the military supplies or not. Okay. Now, for these reasons, you know, a lot of people have just simply said that to dive into an invasion like that, it could cost over 1 million lives, just simply because you'd have to slug it out on the ground over all that territory. I mean, look at the size of Afghanistan versus this.
Right.
It just, logistically, it doesn't make sense. And I think that's a good reason why both sides don't want to get involved in an armed conflict. So it's going to come down to some sort of negotiation, be it economic or whatever. But I don't think it's going to come into an armed conflict. Neither side can afford it.
I certainly hope not.
I honestly believe that.
That is a scary, scary, scary.
Now, again, China, they demand heavily, their demand for oil from Iran is huge. So China is, if a conflict breaks out between us and Iran, China is going to be the one to step in and try and calm everything down. And then Russia, I mean, they'd probably use restraint as well, because like I say, they've got enough headaches going on right now. Right. Anyway, the last thing we want to do is get involved in that. So basically, there you have the answer to several of the big questions. But,
right.
You know, if nothing else, I'm hoping that what we get out of this today is that you can see the conflict isn't something that happened in the past 4 weeks. The conflict is something that's been building and been in place since the time, since 1917, since the time of World War I.
So finally, it just came to a head.
Yes. You know,
just enough to...
Exactly. And I certainly encourage you all, if you get a chance, come to your libraries. We've got a lot of good material here that you can read up on. It's fascinating just to read the stories of the major players involved in all of these things.
Right.
And, you know, become a little bit better knowledgeable, and it'll sure help you try and figure out what's coming out on the news at night.
Well, clearly, clearly the stakes of global affairs are high,
Yes.
and the ripple effects of that international conflict can touch everything from energy prices to national security to humanitarian crisis, all of that. So that's why staying informed is important. And I need to get my head out of the sand and be paying more attention to what's going on. It's just sometimes that's not the way I was raised, with paying attention to that kind of thing. So it's.
But now, as a mom,
and
like,
it's a totally different ball game, and,
Right.
and I do try to keep everything. You know, I don't want to say Pollyanna
Right.
or a utopia, but I do have a tendency to kind of gloss over things with my kids, and I don't need to do that, especially now that they're out on their own.
Mm-hmm.
But so as I said, you know, staying informed, it's an essential thing. So thankfully, here at the library, we do have a source that can keep you informed, keep you, me, everybody informed. And so if you're looking for a reliable way to explore both national and local issues, from politics to education to health, all of that, business and beyond, we do have America's News. So
that's
with
a great source.
It is an awesome source. So
Yeah.
with that, it's our newspaper source that is online. While I do say local, the Lake Sun Leader is on there, but it's very few issues are on there. But if you're wanting to look more globally, and even it might even be a little bit local, is we do have the Kansas City Star on there, and we do have USA Today and the St. Louis Post-Dispatch are on there. You can read those as just text, or they also have the image of the paper. So it is the full PDF in color of that day's paper. So they are uploaded daily. They're available through that source, America's News, from our website at ccld.us/digital-news. U.S-Library. The link will be on our description down below, and then you'll just need your library card to log into that as well.
And that's America's News.
That's America's News,
Yeah.
yep. And it's just not those newspapers. Also, if you want to read transcripts from 2020, I'm trying to think what other news ones there are. Even KY3 has transcripts on there. So it's just more than just newspapers, and I think it's like 3,300 different sources.
You don't have to go to the quick shop and
Nope.
spend $4
So
for
on a
newspaper.
paper that
Yeah.
is, little bitty, you can access this for free. We're taking the hit on that. So,
Great.
all right.
So we doing anything with the summer reading
Well,
program?
that was a heavy subject to
That was
unpack
pretty
there.
heavy, wasn't it?
It
Yeah.
was just a
Yeah,
little bit.
Cheer me up a little bit, will you?
Well, let's do it.
All right.
So, because the world stage can feel a little overwhelming, we do
Yes.
have some things that are coming through. Let's see here where I'm at. I forgot where I'm at. With our summer reading program, this is our next performer that will be coming into the Camden Library on July 22nd. This is Super Friends Drawn Together. He is actually a kids comedian. His name is Dennis Porter. And he will come in, and I guess he's a artist as well. So the kids will get to work together and build their own like skits and do some improv and some fun things like that.
Well, that'd be fun.
Yeah, so this is for ages 6 to 12, and that is at the Camden Library on July 22nd at 2 p.m.
Yay.
So that is one. The other one is the Osage Beach is thrilled to welcome Angela Roquette. She is actually a local author, and some of you might be familiar with her work. She writes the Lena Harvey series, the Reapers Inc. series, and she will be at the Osage Beach Library on July 23rd at 6:30 p.m. So she will share insights into her writing journey, her creative process, and the world of publishing. Whether you're a longtime fan of her books or just curious about how to get published or even the writing process.
She'll be at Osage Beach?
She will be at Osage Beach.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So expect lively conversation or reading from some of her works, and then she'll be there for question and answer as well.
Great.
So, these are kind of quick. So the next thing, Weather Wonders with Mad Science for ages 4 to 6. It actually looks like it's going to rain out here today. But July 24th, we'll have two different events for kiddos. So the first one is ages 4 to 6, and they'll learn about clouds and wind and rain, and then they get to make their own windsock that they can take home with them.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah. So this is perfect for curious minds who love to ask the word why. Especially
Where
when
were
it comes
they
to
when I needed them? Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So then on the next thing is the one for ages 6 to 12. This is called Walloping Weather. So with that, they get to pretend that they're their own meteorologist. So again, they will learn about lightning and rain and the reason for the seasons.
Cool.
So it'll be kind of a fun thing for them and learn to create their own weather forecasts.
Nice.
So that is July 24th. And the first one was at 10 a.m. and this one's at 11 a.m.
Great.
So
Great.
I think that's all I have for today.
Great, great. Well, folks, like I say, we've covered a lot of material. You can see we've got a lot of programs going on right now. So please, hop on our website and check out the calendar. There's something for everyone at all of our libraries. By all means, get out there and utilize them. And any questions you have, we've got a great staff here that can help you. And like I say, learn something new every day. And we'll be back next month.
So yes, August 21st
Yes.
at 8 a.m.
Yes. I'm going to wait and see what happens.
You're going to wait to
Yeah.
see what happens. I was going to
You
ask what our
bet.
next one was, but you're
You
going to wait
bet.
to see what
we'll
happens.
wait and see what happens.
Oh, well, that's hopefully nothing too crazy.
That's right. That's right. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.